Welcome to another week, another sleigh on Will Throw the After Party. I'm very much starting the show off of my game because of a pre-show conversation that cannot continue at this point. But if you notice me staring off into the distance, you can blame it entirely on Alexis. And a little bit on Sly, actually. You can blame it on everyone.
The after party where we drop life-changing news on Liz seconds before we start the intro. How's it going, y'all?
It's the fact that this is the third time I think this has happened to me. We all know the time this happened about Raymond Carmelu and the fact that he's never been voice trained. I don't think I said his name correctly, but please forgive me. I'm tired.
I forgot about that one.
That happened 2 minutes before showtime. This happened 17 seconds before I was set to hit the live button.
It also happened over the vegan dinosaur nuggets.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago.
It's rough sailing over here for those of us that are just totally not involved in any interpersonal conversations outside of the pre-show. I'm Liz. You can find me everywhere on the internet at Producer Liz, and it's been a rough week, but we're here, as Sly says.
We're queer.
Sly, yeah,
and we'll throw the after party.
We're doing it. It's quite the after party this week. Marissa is abandoning us for the party at Harry's house this evening in Chicago, which has ended up being night one of the Chicago shows. So Marissa, have the best time. We are definitely not at all jealous and are so excited for you. And meanwhile, we are all having crises, but it's great because you know how we're coping with shows about crime and She-Hulk. And with that,
you're not wrong.
Sly, how's your week been?
It's been a week. Things have been happening. My note in the infamous show doc this week under the what we've been enjoying segment was I have been consuming a lot of things, but I don't know if I've been enjoying any of it. So that's the vibe this week.
I absolutely agree with that statement. You couldn't have said it better. Alexis, you pulled yourself together so lovely for tonight's episode. We got the makeup, we got the hair, we got the fit. Anything you want to reveal about the fit for those of us tonight, or are we just leaving it at you look great?
We're just leaving it at I look great 17 seconds before showtime.
And you do. How was your week, Bestie? I know you also had a week.
You know, this week was really this weeking. Yeah, but it was good.
I know we proposed a toast during the She-Hulk segment of the show, but I would like to propose a toast this early on in the episode because the fact that we're all here and you're all here with us, and please say hello in the comments if you're here. Hello to Kla, who I'm just seeing chiming in, I think is a really wonderful thing to celebrate. And there's always something to celebrate, even, when things feel like, they're down in the ditch. So cheers. Cheers. Cheers, 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 cheers. We're all here. Right. And that's very special. Hello to Finn, who I see in the comments as well.
Accidental blender bottle promotion. I didn't mean that.
It's okay.
They don't sponsor us. They are not welcome to. But I'm drinking out of this bottle.
I'll have a unpromoted promotion later in the show. We'll get to that. It's fine.
There's no one on your sweater you want to promote this week? No, like construction companies or
don't ignore the fact that okay. If you watched Point in Progress yesterday, you'll notice that I forgot and wore a Corn Main sweatshirt last night, and I may or may not have forgotten and worn a different Corn Main sweatshirt tonight. It's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. Moving on.
I am exclusively wearing this sweater at the moment because I am at my parents' place and I don't know what I own here. So, I feel like I've already worn this sweater so many times on this show. So we're doing great. What have we been enjoying this week? Let's catch up because guess who watched 911 this week?
God.
Listed.
And I don't want to spoil what's coming up later in the rant.
We'll talk about it later.
However, I do want to say, as someone that watches the most chaotic episodes of 911 and 911 Lone Star this week, I continued maintaining my reputation of only watching the most chaotic episodes of 911 and 911 Lone Star because this week on 911, I can't say I have a lot to compare it to, but I know there's been no episodes that compare to what happened this week. But I watched the whole episode from beginning to end, not just a
I'm
random
so proud
segment.
of you.
Thank you. What did you guys think of 911 this week?
Ooh, it was good. For anybody who has watched 911, they took the Boston approach, which I'm a fan of. Okay. I like it in the sense that it's a fun twist to the regular type of episodes that they have. This was not a first responder episode. Which is fine. I like the variety, but also I was so excited for the season to kick off with such strong, like, back to the roots. JJ and I talked about a lot about how, like, when we look at 911, like, what are our points of reference, and I'm very much early season 2 and JJ is very much late season 3, and those are very similar vibes. The difference is one is more character focused and one is more like emergency situation focused, and I'm on the emergency situation focused end of the spectrum of 911. But it was beautifully shot. Angela Bassett and Peter Krause. How can you go wrong? It was impeccable.
Alexis, what did you think?
All those same things. I think one of the things that I don't know whether or not it was an intentional consequence of doing an episode this way, so early into the season, but I do think, like, there are times, especially more recently, that I've seen 911 compared to procedural dramas, which is really not what it is as a show. So I do think doing an episode that would typically fit in a procedural so early in this season was a really good, like, reminder that that's not typically what 911 does, and kind of I think put a brighter light on the things that 911 does well and the things it is successful for. I was only bummed because it's such a cool story, this thing that kind of contributed to Athena being a cop, to be resolved fairly quickly. Like, not in actuality, because in actuality, it's been a very long time. But for us, it's kind of like, oh, this case has been introduced again, and now we've kind of solved it and in one sweep. And I think that's good for the show, but that was not necessarily what I wanted. Like, in a perfect world, I think little pieces of this would have been solved for me over time. I don't think that works in the show's bigger story, but it was kind of what I wanted. But it's always great to see Angela Bassett at peak Angela Bassett. It's always great to see Peter Krause at peak Peter Krause. I thought it was a really solid episode. There were some things that, like, I had questions about, but that's not. I don't think that's really what this episode was for. Like, I don't think this episode, it's kind of a procedural that's, dropped at the beginning of the season to do all of this footwork in Athena's story. It was really supposed to be like a foolproof episode from, like, a crime perspective. So I give it some grace there. But yeah, it was a 4 Alpine episode for me.
You're muted, Liz.
4 Alpines with accessories?
Yeah, sure. 4 Alpines with accessories.
I don't remember what that translates to in terms of hard shell or gluten-free tacos, but perhaps somebody in the chat.
I think I saw Sly's face when I did Alpine math last week, and so I think it's just
Alpine math. It needs to be consistent.
But I don't know what it is. For me, a tortilla warmer was like 0.5, and then a regular taco would have been 0.1, but you needed 2 vegan tacos to make up a regular taco.
We need a spreadsheet with the
Yeah.
equations automatically like
But
ready to be
I never
worked.
even considered accessories in that math. So now I have no idea. I don't know like if you have accessories and a
What?
tortilla warmer. Yeah. Like I thought of accessories as something you removed. I didn't think of them as something you added.
Ah,
You know what I
no,
mean?
Yeah. No, that's
Like
true.
to me,
That's
the
true.
standard Alpine had accessories, and then
Yeah,
you would
you're right.
remove them.
You're right. No, you're
It-
absolutely correct.
Needed like 0.05 of an adjustment.
No, that's absolutely correct. That's absolutely correct. A standard one Alpine includes accessories. Yep, you're right. Well, as an outsider to 911 who only watches it very sporadically, to me watching this episode, it felt like Angela Bassett asked for an Emmy and they said, okay. And that's why they did this episode, because they can submit this just for a nomination for her and not for the rest of what this show usually does. To me, that's entirely what this episode felt like.
I will say,
I feel like Jennifer Love Hewitt should have got one for Boston then, because that was phenomenal.
I will say that a friend of the show, Max Gow, did a lovely article with Angela Bassett, where she talked about like being an executive producer, which is not something that I've really seen her discuss before. I don't know how new that is. Do you know, Sly? Is that how long she's been an executive producer on the show?
At least her second season, maybe her third.
Okay. Because in the interview, I got a little bit of the impression that like maybe some people thought that that was kind of the reason that this episode happened the way that it did. But it's a very good interview. You haven't read it.
I'll have to give it a full read. I didn't realize that they talked about that angle. It also makes me rethink my Emmys point, but we shall see when the Emmy nominations come up.
I mean, I think both things can be true. Like,
Absolutely. In a similar vein, I would like to raise that I have been watching FBI this week. Every night, in fact. And do I remember any of the character names? No. Am I emotionally invested? More than I expected to be. And the episode I watched last night, don't ask me if it's the newest episode. I do not know. I don't know if the episodes play in order on the channel we watch them on, or if it's just on every night at the same time, playing a random episode. But last night, someone got shot who seemed to be very important. And the way it was Blue Bloods that happened on. And I have thoughts about what's happening with Blue Bloods. And I could do a whole rant on it. But FBI, very fascinating. And I feel like if you like 911, you would like FBI and FBI International. Although I like International a little bit less than FBI because the actors in FBI are just so good. So good. So my question is, have either of you watched FBI or FBI International?
I tried an episode of FBI and I didn't love it, but it is my dad's show, which is why I thought it was so funny that you were like, I'm watching FBI, because literally this week my dad was also like, I'm watching FBI. And
Alexis's dad?
Yeah.
We actually have a group text of just me and Alexis's dad, just us, that we just talk about FBI.
My parents are also both on their 911 journey. And my dad has just decided that journey just started with season 6. Just started, that's where he's at. And so like he was highly confused by this episode. He still to this day believes that my mom and I are lying to him and that Buck and Eddie are a gay couple and that we are just lying. Like that is his firm belief. My mother, had watched a couple episodes last season, started watching season 6, got bit by the bug, decided she needed to watch the whole thing, but she was on my Hulu profile. So so her episode, like I think she thought she was going like all the way through, but instead she has caught like half of episodes where I only rewatched one scene and like half of it was still loaded, or she watched like the end of it. It's been terribly confusing. So she decided to start over this week, but they are also watching.
Brilliant.
So yeah.
We're gonna have to do a Thirsty Thursday special, but like Sly and JJ host Alexis's parents and just answer their questions. And Alexis, you can't come. You have to just be in the comments.
You don't want to answer their questions. Sly would have a nervous breakdown.
I love answering questions.
No,
What are you
it's
talking
because of
about?
the way my mom has watched it.
I thought you were going to say, I love my in-laws, but you didn't say that. You said, I love answering questions.
It's because mom said things to me the other day, like, well, I saw that there was a tsunami. How did Buck hurt his leg? And then I was like, whoa. How have you been watching the show?
Would you like to retract your previous statement, Sly?
I would love to answer all of the questions after your mother does a full watch.
My mother, who is very much trying to learn ASL because in her head, she is also a parent to Sly, would love that conversation. You'd be very excited about that.
I just imagine now her signing the question that you just asked, which is, I saw there was a tsunami. How did Buck hurt his leg? And Sly being like, what? I don't think you're saying what you're saying. And her saying it like with the word Sly being like, wait, that is what you're saying. And her being like, so I didn't sign it right? And Sly having to be like, no, you signed it right. Then her being like, well, why didn't you understand? And then Sly having to say, it's a dumb question. Like, I just saw that whole conversation in my head.
She used to tell me to ask Sly things, but she would sign them, which was great.
I do love that.
Yeah. She'd be like, how is Sly doing today? But she would like say, tell Sly. And then she would like sign what she just said to me. And I was like, okay, I will tell Sly that you asked.
I do love that. What else were we watching this week? Alexis, you had a very interesting comment about watching Pip this week.
I make the mistake of never knowing. Like, I have even put in my calendar, like, this is when we believe Pip starts. Join the conversation when Pip begins.
That's because Pip never starts on time. And I'm calling out my co-hosts on air. But the fact that we have never been able to start the show on time, even when we moved the time we start back, it is the bane of my existence. So if you're asking when Pip starts, the answer is 6 p.m. Pacific. In theory, maybe it'll start 15 minutes later. Maybe it'll start 30 minutes later. Maybe it won't happen. Who knows?
It makes me feel so much better because for a really long time I've been embarrassed to say anything because I thought it would look like I just didn't know when the show started. But I was like,
I don't know when this show starts and I'm on it.
I was like, I swear Pip time is in like an alternate reality because no matter how hard I try, like either it is a week everyone has decided not to do it and I just didn't know, or it is like randomly in the middle of some episode. So last night I tried to jump in and Fee was talking about slaughtering a deer. And apparently slaughtering the deer made her healthier. And then I just gave up. Like it was like a hard out. I was like, I have jumped in too late. I have no clue what is happening right now. There is a new person I've never seen before.
Fee was talking about the excavation of Hob Sparrow, which is a game she's playing that she really enjoys, except for the fact that you have to kill the animals to get their hides and to use that throughout the game. And she was very upset by this. So to clarify, Fee has not slaughtered any IRL deer, I promise.
I did. It is in my what are you enjoying this week? Because I did enjoy the just like adrenaline rush that was like, holy fuck. I did not think this show was going in slaughtering the deer direction. And then I knew it couldn't be a real animal because she's like, it gave us health. And I was like, what?
I propose we rename this segment because I'm not sure what I've been enjoying is the right title for any of the stories we've said this week so much as a what are we watching, reading to cope with life.
One of our co-hosts gets a little sassy when you haven't enjoyed it. I'm just saying.
I wonder who that could be.
I wonder who that is.
I have been reading a lot of fan fiction, a lot of fix-it
Shocking.
fic, but not fix-it fic in the way that you would expect for the show that I'm watching fix-it fic for. So Like I'm not reading fic that fixes the MCD that occurs canonically. I'm watching the fic that involves the other aspect of the show.
Incredible. Truly.
So
I do
that's what
love
I've been
this.
enjoying.
I'm really excited for She-Hulk to end so we can start doing the most chaotic show themes ever. Like Sly spent a half hour walking through their entire approach to fanfic.
God.
I'm going to nominate you to do it. Anyway, what have y'all been enjoying this week? I see Claw's here, and Claw saw Into the Woods on Wednesday and Hades Town today, and you're in your Monster High era. You know me, I do love that for you. We are in our 911
Monster High.
Yeah, please.
I casually have a copy of Monster High
Sly in the
on my
Monster High
bookshelf.
era.
I love that that's like the book you can read.
What's the bookmark? Let's see.
My whole bookshelf is right next to
Oh, okay.
My bookmark is on page 217 of 253. I don't know why I stopped there.
Give me one sentence on that page.
Oh God. Need a ride? Question mark.
And with that, let's
And
ride.
speaking of things I actually read in fan fiction this week.
I was gonna say, let's ride on over to our rants of the week. Hey, let's do it. We all have very fascinating rants picked out for all of you this week. We've all made a list, which inspired by our jealousy of Alexis's list rants. I'm going to be giving you, I do this rant every time we have a new album coming out. Once the track list is released, we go through the track list. I give you my predictions for the songs. And then once we've heard the album, we will reflect on my predictions and see how correct I was. So tonight I'm doing my most unhinged, not thought out predictions for what I think every song on Midnights by Taylor Swift is going to be based on the track names alone. And no, I haven't watched all of the Mayhem at Midnight with Me videos that she's put out on TikTok and on Instagram. It has been a week. So we're truly going on nothing. Would you say, Sly?
Iconic.
Something, for sure. Alexis, what are you ranting about this week?
I am just now realizing that you actually changed the title in the show doc.
I did.
Which I'm very tempted to just like toss this rant out and instead do a rant about the fact that you changed the title of the rants. But I am doing a listicle about things I experienced in fanfic this week. And the fun part will be that I was really proactive and started this on Monday. And I do not recall why some of the things are on this list. So yay!
It's quite the list. It's long with multiple categories, subsections.
I anticipated it being longer. I'm a little worried that it's too short.
Well, we will find out. Sly, what are you ranting about this week?
My rant is a listicle on texts I've received this week, but the caveat is that some of these I received in the past 2 weeks because I don't know how to read and I scrolled back too far. So
show stopping. Okay, let's hear some listicle style
disaster
rants. I can't wait. Okay, so we have 13 tracks on Midnights, and we're going to go through them one by one. I'm going to give you my predictions. I've only read this track list in full once, and it was when I was copying and pasting it into the show doc. So, without further ado, Lavender Haze. I do know that she took this from a Madman reference, thinking that it was an actual historical context reference to Being in Love, and it's not. The Madman writers made it up entirely. So, I don't know what she's going to do, but I'm expecting it's going to be like The Lakes.
I started panicking because I couldn't remember if we did this in 20-second intervals or 30-second intervals. We do it in 30-second intervals, right? It's 30?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so here are some pros from fanfic this week. Karen's Queer Book Club. I would like that to be canon. I think that is a fabulous idea. And the thought behind this book club was that Karen would gather people she thought they were queer, whether they knew that or not, to join this book club, which I think is fantastic.
All right. So the first text I have for y'all this week, and I'm giving these with no context, but I will give commentary on them. The first one is, can't watch the show, y'all will be too funny and make me cry. I thought that was cute. The next was somebody reading me to filth saying, I was so surprised by your number one, and this is in reference to my favorite track on debut. But then I remembered you're a secret country fan. Wow, thanks.
Number 2 is Maroon. This has to be about Adam Levine's infidelity, or I will not like the song. Number 3 is Antihero. This has to be about Adam Levine's infidelity, or I will not like the song. Number 4, Snow on the Beach featuring Lana Del Rey. If you know, you know. There's no other option for what that song can be about. You're on your own, kid. It has to be about Adam Levine's infidelity, or I will not enjoy the song.
I forgot Liz asked me to rate these. So I would give Karen's Queer Book Club a 4 out of 5. Another pro has been romance detective AUs, very specifically romance novel style detective AUs, which get a 5 out of 5. Unlike regular detective AUs, which are a con, they get about 3 out of 5, especially because no one knows how detectives work. Wedding AUs are a pro, and what I mean here is...
All right, the next was Alexis demanding to know what the off-mic joke was from the MC University episode, which, again, I could not tell you. I black out when I record. I have no idea what the joke was. I did get a text this week that said, what episode of 911 is this? Followed by, is there good buddy in this? No, there is not good buddy in that episode, whoever texted that. The next was, I'm saving it for my next segment. It's too good.
Midnight Rain. No, there is a theory out there around like the Delicate music video, and it was raining, and there's all the stuff that connects it to like Taylor and Joe's love story. So like I think it's gonna be a sweet song about the beginning of their relationship and their connection to Midnight Rain. Very cute. I'm currently traumatized by rain as someone that just went through a hurricane, so I'm not really into the title Midnight Rain. When I saw it, I was like, too soon, bestie. Question ... with a question mark. Also, too soon, bestie.
These wedding AUs are not like wedding AUs. They were like, I have to go to a wedding and I need us to pretend to be boyfriend AUs. And some of those setups are incredibly labored. Like they are so much more than they need to be. But I'm going to give those a solid 4 out of 5. Vampires! There was another vampire AU this week. And my husband's reaction.
All right, the next text I received this week was, but if I don't go to jail for murdering this asshole, I'll be there. They're big at our show. You might be like, that's an extreme reaction, but the follow-up text from somebody else says, oh, I am going to jail if you're not. So just believe it was not an out-of-pocket reaction. Next was update. I am doing great at being Ali Plum's emotional support Canadian. I bet we can guess who that was. The next was, how insane would it be to get a Christmas tree for my bedroom? Not at all.
I'm anticipating Vigilante Shit will be my favorite song on the album, and I'm hoping it gives angry folklore energy specifically. Bejeweled, I think, might be our lover reference, and she's made some references to being bejeweled in the past. Karma is going to be our reputation-based song. I think it will be a tie for my favorite with Vigilante Shit. Sweet Nothing has to be a roast to Calvin Harris because of his song Sweet Nothing, and they used to date.
The idea of vampire AUs gets a 5 out of 5. That particular vampire AU fell in like the monster fucker vampire lore category, and that got a 3 out of 5 for me. Cons would include the love boner. I have no idea what that was in reference to. Not a clue in my brain. Defining the drug that you gave someone against their will at the end of the fix so that we all knew what it was. That was a con for me. That got like a 1 out of 5.
All right, next I got a text that just says, it's Mr. Buckley, an accountant, to which I replied, Philip, ? It was the time. Next was, we should date soonish. We should date sometime soonish. True, very gay. Next was explain to me why I woke up this morning and decided I needed a fake rivals where Eddie is a police officer and Buck is a fire captain, because that sounds incredible. Duh, why not? Next was theft is great. Who doesn't like
I'm
theft?
giving
Also
everyone
accurate.
Everyone's getting bonus Marissa time because Marissa's not here. None of us finished our lists. There's 2 more songs left on the track list. One is Labyrinth, which I skipped, and it's Sly's Claim. Labyrinth, I don't know what this is going to be in reference to, but she did use the word at TIFF, so you know it's going to be some big brain thinking. I think it's going to be a big brain song. And then Mastermind, I think is going to be as deceiving as like Happiness was. If you know Happiness, you know it's a sad song on Evermore.
Microfix, also a con for me. I need something longer. It's a personal preference thing. 1 out of 5. Everyone knows that I love a 911 fic tag because they're fantastic. And so on the record before the zip tie incident of 602 has become one of my favorites. So that's like a 4 out of 5. The quote, Buck, you know I'm gay, was just a lot because nobody knows that. Really. So like 4 out of 5.
All right. The next was one of my favorite texts I received ever was, saw this, thought of you, so I sent it. I feel like that's all the explanation needed. The thing could have been sent with no explanation, but the fact that I got a text explaining that I was getting no explanation was great. Next was, today I found cool vintage Christmas ornaments equals now I much rewatch Timeless. I wonder who that was. Next was, we are reading very different fics right now. I didn't ask what fic you were reading, and I'm still a little salty about that. And I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna finish it off. I got a text that listed 2 options, and then the follow-up text was or D, all of the above, which cracked me up because there was only 2 things before it, which means it would have been C, but I still got or D, all of the above, and that was great.
Alexis, would you like to finish your list?
Yes. Also the line, you dreamed me up, that's why I'm shorter than you. Which was a line from when Eddie Diaz, again, I cannot remember where it was. I just thought it was funny. There was a fic I read where it was assumed that Anna was Eddie's sister. And I shouldn't find that funny, but I found it really funny. And when asked about it, asked why she didn't correct them, Anna said, well, I thought it would be a little uncomfortable to tell a bunch of people who thought your husband was in the room that I was your girlfriend. And I liked that energy. And one that I saw in almost every fic I read this week was Buck being described as whining multiple times.
Accurate.
Doing different things. So yeah, there you go. I also needed to answer a question for somebody. I can't remember what it was.
Okay. You need to answer what fic you were reading when you said we were reading very different fics right now. But the other thing is, I am personally offended by microfics being a con. I love microfiction in every form. It's one of my favorite things.
I'm in the gray zone on that one.
Yeah. I listen, I read some really good ones this week, but almost every time I was like, but so
I love microfiction. So
Y'all know my stance. My minimum word count, 85,000.
That's a lie.
To me, that's micro.
You say that, but then you're disappointed if it's under 150K.
You're right. You're right.
So the fic that I was reading, I will tell this story first. So one of my favorite fanfic authors, I got an email that they had written a news story, and I saw their author, like their pseudonym in the email title, and then the tag vampires. I read none of the other tags. I stopped my life.
I have not read that fic yet, but it's also in my inbox.
My life came to a stop. Like I was prepping for the next morning. Like I had not finished my skincare routine. I was taking the legs off of Brachiosaurus sun butter sandwiches. Like I was in the middle of stuff and I was like, no, dropping everything now, reading this fic. And it was a fic.
Mm-hmm. The tag that I sent that prompted that text was, the entire plot is just Willie saying no homo as he does progressively gayer things. Which was very accurate. That was the whole thing. Like,
It just also seemed, I don't know, I guess connotatively, there was like a pureness in that to me, in that tag. And like, people were covered in blood in my world, like head to toe, covered in blood. It's like, holy shit, Sly and I are in two different places right now. And I love that for us.
For Christmas/holiday of choice that happens in December this year, I think we all need to write each other what we think each other's dream fic sounds like.
Or I can just
I'm
finish
not
the one that
writing
I've been working.
150,000 words for you, Liz. I'm so sorry.
And it's like if we did a word count of like 100 or 200 and had to fit in every single trope that we think each other likes.
Okay, Liz.
I've got to add some fake fiancés to the middle of my bar scene, and I don't know how that's gonna go, but I'll make it work.
I just imagine Sly as like hockey players, like, but like plot twist. They're in Canada, but plot twist. Hurt no comfort, but plot twist. Like it just be all over the place.
I have read a single. Okay, no, I've read 2 hockey fics in my life, and the fact that I know
One of them
exactly
involves
which one you're
ballet.
referencing.
Oh shit! I forgot Liz read that.
And with that, let's talk about She-Hulk.
Oh my god!
So typically we do a rowdy recap of the episode, and we can do a rowdy recap, except I exited out of the tab that has the clock on it. So it will take me a minute to reload it, unless we want to just attempt to do it.
We could do it without a timer.
Let's do it without a timer.
Sly says boldly.
So, spoilers for She-Hulk if you have not watched. But this week on She-Hulk, let's just go point for point here and see how well we do. How does that sound?
Let's go. We each read one of our bullet points, trying to tell the story, but without like looking at each other's bullet.
Okay,
Okay.
good.
Yeah,
Can I start? I have a really good one
Yeah.
to start. Why do I think the guy with taking the TV is Jake Johnson from Into the Spider-Verse Spider-Man? Because is this a crossover into the Sony universe?
Incredible.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go next, Alexis?
Yeah, because my
Okay.
bullet point in response to that is an essay. So
My second bullet point is: are we only going to get conflict waiver cases? I hate everything about that.
okay, hang on, I gotta catch up.
Then, so that I have, Alexis, a jumping off point for you. Well, it's worth saying. I have a point that says, Frogman is real, ribbit and rip it, LMAO. Then we go to court. Alexis, would you like to share a note?
Uh-huh.
Go ahead.
We take very different notes.
Mm-hmm.
Give me just a minute.
Mm-hmm.
We are in court.
Uh-huh.
Oh, great. Matt Murdock is here. Unenthused. The confetti is also unenthused.
Iconic.
And then Matt Murdock says, a very shaky what if. And I wrote, that line is my new bar for all future what if episodes. A very shaky what if. Sly?
I put Sokovia Accords repealed, question mark, question mark, question mark.
And I wrote, Civil War rise. And I want to know if Marissa made a note about that particular moment. Let me see.
Oh,
No, Marissa made
she
no
did not.
notes.
All right, my next note is a rich dumbass. Figures. This is the fetish dude.
Oh shit!
Oh,
Wow.
you really jumped ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, so before
sorry.
no,
Go back.
before he comes back, Jen loses the court case. Alexis, do you have any notes on that? To
On her
Daredevil.
The court case? I have notes after it.
Okay, go for it.
Did you have to put the leg up to get over the stool, Matt Murdock? That was such an MMA boxer move.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I have a note that says these writers are writing this Matt Murdock for the female gaze like they have read the Daredevil fan fiction. Okay, then Sly.
My next note is they want it back because apparently it was stolen by colonizers, but whatever, which I need to follow up with Marissa's notes. No one is collecting African shit on my level. You might want to look up the British Museum.
My note is I have a book recommendation for you, The British Museums. It's about how the British museums looted artifacts on your level.
And this is in relation to the fetish guy who came back after a very horrible move to get Jen to show up at a bar with him. He did say he studied abroad in Wakanda, and I just put no. And then Jen says, I'm going to bill you for the full hour when she leaves, and I put yes. Next.
I think
my next note is
go Slide.
Oh yeah, my next note is we're getting a suit reveal.
Oh, okay.
And then I put, I thought we understood the V-neck is impractical.
I have no clue what that's in response to.
Because her uniform has a V-neck.
Yeah, okay.
So I thought we understood the V-neck is impractical for crime fighting because it leaves all of you open. And then I followed that with, it's supposed to be because her skin is impenetrable.
I'm going to give you two. I have that facial expression was very OG Daredevil, meaning the movie. And then my next one was, you're very persistent, aren't you? Were you flirting, Matt? That felt like flirting.
My next note is just the and then all caps banter.
Yep. And then I wrote a note that this is in relation to the frogman and his lair. We're at his lair now. And I wrote, I can guarantee if someone is okay with being called a tadpole, they are not good with a weapon. And then I followed that with, and I'm right.
So I'm going to be real honest and say that this was the point that I skipped ahead because it had taken me an hour and a half to notate the first 15 minutes of this show. And there were more notes that were important later. So I don't know if you want me to jump ahead.
I mean, my next note is about Luke, so go ahead.
Okay, my next note is the gays do everything better, including but not limited to the sex scene, TM, featuring through the door switcheroos that the gays also did better.
T.
My note for that was just lowercase o, capital case H, question mark.
And then, meanwhile, in my notes, Daredevil says, I'm just a big fan of legal dramas. So in the style of The Office, I wrote, I'm just a big fan of legal dramas. Daredevil, Alexis. And then, everything happens. And then, or at the end of the episode, she has a fourth wall break. And then there's a gala. And I wrote, I do love the gala dresses.
I wrote, it's the promo dress. It's one of the promotional images had this dress. And I kept being like, did we see that in the first episode? I don't think we did. And then I saw it here and I went, this is the promo dress.
I had a bunch of notes about fashion being cyclical. It is important to know, important context is that I've mentioned the year 2010 15 times in these notes. So my next and last note says the revenge porn plot line also feels very 2010.
Mm-hmm. And then they had a bunch of flashing lights and I got very angry.
I said, oh, great, an anonymous moment. And then I said, why is this the second show with a leaked sex tape I've watched this week? WTF.
The way my head decided that the only two things you watched this week, but like one of them is a thing you don't watch, my head went, there were sex tapes in 911 and Teen Wolf.
No.
I missed a 911 sex tape drop.
My favorite note from Marissa this week is ribbit and rip it is a flop catchphrase. Oh, I just remembered I have to make the promo, meaning the promo for our show.
My favorite was, I don't think these notes are any help. Oops.
There's also all capital and spaced LOL with no reference to what it's in relation
I actually haven't
to.
had time to read through Marissa's notes. I saw the one about I saw one about the suit, and I was like, Marissa and I really disagree on this suit.
So let's just talk about
cars
this.
are not props. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Cars are
Cars
not
are not
props.
props.
Jennifer.
Let's talk about the suit because this is one that was teased in the end graphics of every episode. You saw her in this exact suit, and I was hoping that we would never see this suit like this, to be perfectly honest, because I wanted to see her in something that was cool and not so revealing.
Fair.
Looks like a gym class outfit.
It really does.
I'm really upset for her.
It really gives like 1980s jazzercise.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a kind of a comic book reference. But like therein comes the conversation of like Marvel with its discretionary power and what it chooses to keep comic accurate, what it chooses to reference from the comics, and what it chooses to just not give a crap about. And I would argue that maybe this was one of those things that could have been updated and adapted.
Mm-hmm. I also would add, like, in terms of updating and adapting, like the trope around like hair and bun means like uptight and formal versus down means like loose, like, you know, like going with the flow, and how they particularly in this episode showed the hair and the bun in court followed by her at the gala with her hair down and luscious, like to the lawyer thing to try and be like a transformative moment. But like it's so impractical for her hair to be down when she's fighting. And Marissa also had this in her notes, so shout out Marissa for catching this, versus like you could have your hair down in court and it would still be very practical. So it really bothers me that we know she can do a bun with the She-Hulk hair and like have her hair away from her face. And yet when she's fighting, it's like down. It's like, girl, put it up.
And never in her face. It's always very perfectly styled while fighting.
Like directly here.
Choice.
I can't even keep my hair out of my face when I have these headphones on, let alone like if I was throwing people at walls.
Honestly, that whole fight was a choice.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. This show is obviously not about the fights and the action so much as like the journey along the way, but still, it's not it. It's not it. But we'll get a little bit more into like the fights and specifically with Daredevil a little bit later. I want to talk about Leapfrog because I have to share the theory that I have about Leapfrog. Do we all know the children's educational toy line, Leapfrog?
Pretty sure I have one in my closet.
So my theory, because they made the comment that this is the kid of rich parents, he's Leapfrog because he is the heir to the Leapfrog estate. So he was like, I'm going to take the Leapfrog Enterprise and make it my entire personality because that's all I've known my whole life and become this villain Leapfrog character. Yep. And Alexis, oh, we lost Alexis as soon as I was about to reference Alexis.
I just love, my favorite part of this is that you are referring to Leapfrog as an estate and not a brand.
Oh yeah, the Leapfrog estate, absolutely. Absolutely.
And
Like,
also that you called him a villain when he was trying to be a hero.
well, he became a villain by the end of it to me. And honestly, he, like, his behavior the entire time, I wouldn't call him a hero.
I don't think he's intelligent enough to be considered a villain.
That's fair. But Alexis, I would like you to add to my conspiracy about Leapfrog and the real world Leapfrog estate.
Here's what I will say without getting sued for libel. Leapfrog hypothetically made educational toys to help kids read, and they were hypothetically designed by somebody who had a lot of experience in tech, which raised concerns similar to the ones we found in the Furby situation. And then they were acquired by another company, and we all know how that goes. And now there were really no more Leapfrogs. But they are, I was telling Liz here, they're used quite a bit in SPED classrooms, but they're used quite a bit in SPED classrooms still. So people still try to like find them and buy them. But
so my theory is the estate was affected by the hypothetical conflict. Thus leads us to our Leapfrog in She-Hulk. Thank you very much. That's my Leapfrog statement.
It feels very like the cinematic universe Lex Luthor story. Like it kind of has that. I think what you're going for kind of has that vibe. Not my Lex Luthor, but
I'll take it. I'll take it. Sly, is there anything you'd like to add on to this?
I don't think so.
You're gonna fully step out. I do love that. I'm realizing I was so excited to share that we completely skipped our toast for the week. So why don't we do our toast for the week? I really wanted to get that out there so we could all share that Leapfrog moment. Sly, ooh, what are you drinking? What are you toasting with this week?
I'm toasting with a tangerine LaCroix. This is the product placement that we are not being paid for this episode.
Oh yeah, that was the one that you. This is your one. I love it. Alexis, what are you toasting with this week?
I'm gonna toast with my Capri Sun.
Beautiful, beautiful choice. And then I've toasted with this in the past, and they still have not sponsored Blue Lobster Pink Lemonade, one of my faves. Waiting for that call. Waiting for that sponsorship. Okay. What are we toasting to? Sly, would you like to get us kickstarted?
I am toasting to sparkle emojis banter. Cheers.
I do love the Capri Sun toasting. It's so good. Alexis.
We have a plethora of them at the moment. I am toasting to lawyer bars. Specifically because it's very aesthetic, and I love any type of like employment specific bar. Like I'm also a big fan of like shield and ladder bars. Lawyer bars kind of have a vibe.
Also, the fact that it's called legalese is the funniest shit ever.
Yeah. And it feels very lawyery, right? Like it may be the only positive set design decision that they made in the show. Maybe the lawyer bar.
I love that it implies that there are enough lawyers within that community that it can, support that size of a business and that.
It's LA.
Listen, I'm going to say something highly controversial. What else is new? One of my favorite episodes of television, like I would put it in my top 10 favorite episodes of television, is the pilot of Covert Affairs, which also establishes that there are enough intelligence officers in DC that they like have a bar that they frequent, which goes against everything we know about intelligence officers. And that they were like random ass college girls at this bar who do not know that it's the intelligence officers hangout. And really, it just looks like a knockoff luau situation.
Incredible. Incredible. I feel like there must be a privacy concern with all the intelligence officers going to one bar together.
1000%. Coincidentally, it's also a show that is kind of related to a point that Sly will make later.
Okay, I cannot wait to see what that's about. Shout out to JJ toasting with the Negroni. Love that for you, friend. I'm gonna toast to Ribbit and Rip It and cheesy superhero sayings. They're not all good. They're not even all great, but I do enjoy them every time. Cheers.
For some reason, when you said that, never mind. Move on.
You keep that to yourself, bestie. You let me know in the private chat. Okay. And then our Hulk out moments of the week. I'm gonna go first. I'm pretty mad about this one. Fetish guy is back. And I just never want to see that man ever again. And he was as bad as he could possibly be this episode. Yeah. Yeah.
Boo, indeed.
Sly and Alexis, would you like to share?
Yeah, my Hulk out moment of the week. I don't know if it's the same. It's the same character. I don't know if it's the same moment. But Luke made a comment about like Jen not gaining weight or getting bloated to fit into her dress. Fuck that. Boo.
Adding that to the soundboard.
Why is it only me?
I don't know, because you're the best.
You're the best.
Mine says, but can mine also be Luke? And I literally just meant Luke.
Okay, fair enough.
Like all of it.
Why is this guy the top designer and all of his design choices trash?
Well, there's a bit where Jen makes a comment about Matt's suit, and she's like, "It doesn't look like it," and I'm like, "But it does, because it doesn't fit him, and it's an old suit design that does look like a Luke Jacobson choice. It does.
It does.
It's also LA. Like, it's a city filled with fashion designers, costume designers, costumers for TV and film and runway and like commercial and just anything you could ever imagine. So I don't understand how he's cornered the market in such a competitive city to do fashion.
Right?
The math is not mathing for me. Like, wouldn't Stark Industries have hired the most incredible person and like publicly own that like they do superhero suit design in a post-Sokovian Accords world? Is that not something that like the Stark estate would be front and center on?
I now need a conversation between Yelena and Luke Jacobson. And I need it really badly. Someone give me that fanfic.
Listen, I'll put it in my mind for that idea I said earlier about like Alexis ideal fic.
Yeah, but none of my tropes should fit into that fic.
You're right. It can be a B-plot. And with that, let's talk about the Sokovian Accords being repealed, because like what a bombshell to just casually throw.
Casually.
What a way to make the dude bros watch the show. I mean, like, hats off to Kevin Feige. They really said, what is the one thing that would make someone undeniably be interested in She-Hulk? And this is a big one. It's a big one. Here's a great question. What does it mean? None of us really know, but I did Google it and I watched some think pieces on it and I think I understand. So I will give you my take. It means that the governmental oversight, specifically with the UN, as it applies to superheroes worldwide, is now null, which means superheroes are private citizens, not controlled by military or government. AKA, Team Cap, you've done it all these years later.
Sounds about right.
Anyone want to add any thoughts to that?
If you're going to try to make this show relevant to the rest of the MCU, a throwaway line in a court case that has nothing to do with this, I don't feel like is the direction. Like, they tried to make this a lawyer show, but it's not. I hate to say it, it's not. And this episode, they were really trying to convince us that it was a lawyer show and that it was relevant to the laws of this universe. And it just was not the take I wanted from what this show has become.
I will say, I have 2 points here. In response to your point, Sly, I do think the structure of that line did more than the content of that line. Like, I do think Matt delivering it in such a way that, like, he implied that Jen did not have that knowledge or was trying to conceal that knowledge, and like tossed it to the judge, like, you and I will be friends because, like, here's this nugget of information we both share, even though everybody that has a legal degree in the MCU would know that. I thought that actually did more than the content of the line being about the Sokovian Accords. And my second point is that that's because we actually don't know the fine bullet point details of the Sokovian Accords. So while we all want to say, woohoo, Team Cap is in the right, I don't know that we know that, because from this overturning of the Sokovian Accords could come a lot of problems. If a bunch of people that are private citizens now get to just claim that they're superheroes and do whatever they want. On the other hand, we don't know that there aren't other laws governing vigilantism, or that private citizens acting as superheroes couldn't be charged for destruction of public property or carrying a concealed weapon or these types of things. Like, we don't know that because we don't actually know what's in the Sokovian Accords overall. Like, that document on the table is like about this big. We only know.
I think, yeah, that's most of my problem with it, is them throwing away that line by just casually mentioning this is overturning and not, having any sort of conversation surrounding what that means and how that impacts the universe when it happened. Like, all of these questions are left unanswered that, like, I feel like they were trying to make this like really like, ooh, exciting line, but for me it just brought up way too many questions to like, okay, but what are actually the logistics of this universe? Why aren't you answering those questions? Why aren't we getting the fine details on, an insurance case?
And this show has a couple times thrown out lines. For instance, one about Captain America's virginity that, like, they throw out like they're these big, like, and in the end, it just feels like there wasn't a lot of thought behind the decision to include them.
Absolutely.
Might you say that those lines were an intern of the week moment?
I love that our intern of the week ranges from like stellar, like made the best choice and made the worst choice. Like, there were no mid-level interns. Like, they either suck and don't make it through the semester, or make it through the semester because they're white men and then they like run the MCU, or they're like brilliant. And I like to think the brilliant interns of the week are the women and the other minority groups.
I do want to know before we leave this point, like, how many levels of conversation within the MCU organization had to take place to confirm the line that the Sokovian Accords are repealed? Because that is a pretty, like, that is a huge statement to make in terms of the world building and all of the future projects coming out. So like, was that something that Kevin Feige decided and then was trying to find a place to announce it within and that it's going to be here? And then like the writers had to figure out a way to work it in? Or was it something that like came up at through a different project and Kevin was like, no, this isn't the right place, but I like it, so I'm going to take it and put it somewhere else? Like, I'm so curious because like that would have had to go through that has so many implications to everything. Like, when was that decision made? Why was this the place they put it? I would like to know. I would like to know.
I feel like they brush up against that question in the Allie Plum interview that didn't include any cats. Like, there's a reference made to like a lot of times they were told they could or couldn't do something without any like explanation. It'd be like, we need you to do this, but we can't tell you why. Which is really similar. Matt Fraction used to tell a story when he was writing the Hawkeye comics about how they would come and they'd be like, no, in this issue, you need to be in space. And he'd be like, why? And they'd be like, we can't tell you that, just make it happen organically. Because some other, issue of the Avengers was going to have Hawkeye in space at that time, right? So I think that's kind of validating, to the Allie Plum interview in the way that that's probably how Marvel does this.
That's
like it may not have
Allie
been,
Plum references this episode. I'm having a great time, y'all.
It may not have been, can we include the Sokovian Accords? Like, I think it is equally likely that it was, we need you to include that the Sokovian Accords are overturned, but we can't tell you why. And so we just got the line.
So where do we think it's going to come up again? I think the Thunderbolts.
I think the Thunderbolts would be a good place for it. I think Secret Invasion will probably be a good spot. I wouldn't be surprised if in Secret Invasion we also learned that there was legislation in the Sokovian Accords around extraterrestrial immigrants. And the superheroes' roles in defending or protecting Earth from that.
Okay, this is a great comment from JJ. Amon texting Kevin Feige asking the same questions about the Accords. So sometimes, and I'm sure for, if anyone here is a writer, they would know this, but like sometimes when you're writing things, could be fan fiction, could be movies, you write things that you never actually put in the thing you're writing, but that you can use as your own reference to the work that you're writing. So I do wonder if like there is Sokovian Accords, like a document that they did write during the Civil War creation process to say like, this is what it is, even if we never publish it in full.
I don't know that
to what I want from this universe when I was like, give me all of the astrophysics papers they keep referencing. I would love to have a map. I would love to have all of the scientific journals you're referencing. I'd love to have a copy of the Sokovian Accords. Just give it to us. Like, give us homework, please, for the love of God.
The thing that really kills me about that, and I think you said this before, Sly, is that there are a lot of academic nerdy people. Like, if you just put the call out that you wanted papers that hypothetically took place in the MCU, there were thousands of people. I would write you a paper. I would write you a paper about like laws that had changed or not changed the MCU. I am sure some physicists would write you a paper about like, you would just have to put the like intern of the week, make a Tumblr asking for academic MCU papers.
I will say, Kevin Feige, I'm speaking to you directly. There is someone on your screen that does have the IP for MC University. And I'm not saying they're open to offers, but I am saying you should contact them.
Very true.
You could do a whole sideshow on MC University and have like MC University Astrophysics, MC University Laws.
I would so happily be the platform to do a crash course style MCU courses. Absolutely. Let's make it happen.
We all know, well, I've talked about it on the show before, that sometimes I have kind of off the wall dreams about my anxieties. And this week, I promise this relates. This week, I was watching Marissa on MC University. Plug, plug, plug. Go watch it. It's great. And it followed with me having this dream that I was on MC University, but we were doing it like 48 hours straight. And instead of talking about films, we were watching and reacting to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s episodes in real time. But they were picked by a Dungeons and Dragons, like 20-side dice. So we would roll the dice, and then we would go to that episode number and watch it. And then we would discuss it. And it went on for 48 hours. And I woke up like, oh my God, I am not prepared for that.
That sounds like your worst nightmare.
Shield via a D20. Incredible.
I think it's also probably because I re-listened to that Code Switch episode this week. So it was just like everything like in my mind at one time. Yeah.
Nobody steal that idea. We're going to use it.
I love that. That's legitimately brilliant. But while we're talking about the like tangentially related MCU shows, everybody go watch Cloak and Dagger. What the fuck? It's great.
Yeah.
I almost started it this week, but then I bought Christmas ornaments. So we'll put it next on the list.
Just hold on. How that has the same energy. I'm not saying you sent the text in Sly's right, but the text that was like, what was it about Timeless?
It was today I found cool vintage Christmas ornaments equals now I must rewatch Timeless.
I feel like that's the loop.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. JJ is saying Patreon content for the D20 dice roll Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. series. I mean, we can add everything to the list, besties. Maybe not 48 hours straight. Oh, here's a great side note. Werewolf by Night.
Do we want to do it now?
Maybe we'll end the show with it, shall we? Since we don't have anything listed for the end of the show.
Yeah, that we'll talk about it after our She-Hulk segment.
Okay.
We'll get to the Werewolf by Night for sure.
Okay. Alexis, go back to a point that you made earlier. And going on the point of like we would like more context about the laws and legalities in the MCU. You made a point in the show doc about how like the butterfly effect.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to explain that thought and introduce our next question?
So the reason this kind of started in my head in part 2 is because ironically and coincidentally, I had to do a class study this week on the way laws in LA have changed due to like COVID and lawsuits and like lots of fun stuff. And so laws like shoplifting have become like offenses that like nobody's going to get in trouble for, which is why those thieves should have stolen TVs in broad daylight, because what they would get in trouble for is breaking and entering and colluding. They would not get in trouble for just walking out with a television. So I started thinking about like, if you live in a world where there are superheroes who are having battles, like what are other laws that kind of change and butterfly effect down the line? And so now Liz is going to tell you a lot of smart people stuff about that.
It's your entire list, but we thought. Okay, so we were talking about what other laws you would need to operate in the world in the MCU, basically. Specifically on Earth, and not considering the multiverse, and not considering the other planets we know of, and intergalactic travel, like specifically Earth. So there was a point raised about heat. Mm-hmm. Alexis, you raised the very infamous McDonald's case with getting burned from McDonald's coffee. Mm-hmm. What happens if a restaurant explodes and like hot coffee or grease or oil, like from a deep fryer, explodes? People get burned, or like burn related injuries skyrise. And like that made me think about insurance. Mm-hmm. And like, I mean, like you've seen the people on TikTok that do like insurance in the MCU skits. Mm-hmm. Like that would be such a whole thing. we talked about the prison system and how so much of like the prison system would have to be considered. And a point that we didn't talk about in the pre-show that I would like to raise is like, I think you would probably have to have like what you would see with the Abomination, like these high level security prisons that like the super villains, or also like, could you put superheroes and super villains?
Supermax the prison.
Yeah. Right. Tenant insurance and acts of God. Like, do acts of God include Thor?
Right. Well, and like going to your Heat thing, I think it's so fascinating because, like, in the McDonald's case, they sued McDonald's. But like in this case, do you sue like the city? Do you sue the superheroes? Like, is it like, oh, I'm suing the city because the foundation should have been sturdier because they know that there have been intergalactic battles here? Do you sue like the restaurant for not having safety precautions? Do you sue the superheroes? Like, it is interesting to me that like we haven't heard about like
the villains.
Yeah. Or like Captain America being sued. Like, I think that would be an interesting like question.
Who is technically government property, so then you're technically suing the government.
The government, right?
Absolutely. I also think that like you would see so many capitalist like opportunities within that, like durable fashion and materials. Like, would you see the rise of like, you know, what's it called? Like bomb shelter, sustainable, like building materials,
Bomb-proof.
Bomb-proof like building materials, and then like every building gets rebuilt with like these bomb-proof materials to like keep buildings standing. And then how does that affect like, you know, brick and coal and oil and like just, you know?
Do you put like shatterproof glass in cars? Because the Hulk smashed and like took a bunch of windows out. Like, is Nissan somewhere? Like, you know, we're better than the Camry.
Hulk-proof cars.
Yeah, we have like shatterproof, and then there's like at the end there's like only shatterproof and blah, 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 you know.
Yep. And then I also think about like, do helmets become the new big accessory for the season? Like this season in helmet fashion. Interchangeable like shatterproof visors. Like this season we're all wearing red. Ooh. Like I just feel like that's inevitable. Or like gloves.
I'm also, this is a little off topic, but like I'm also interested in like how the Olympic Games change. Or like if there are rules involved and like who can and cannot participate.
I also wonder, do people even want to watch the Olympic Games when you can watch Captain America run and jump and do all the things way better than people in the Olympics can?
I'm thinking of like the figure skating doping scandal, but it's super soldier serum that's diluted. Like,
no, I'm imagining like Bucky Barnes doing like a triple axel.
I can find you that fic. I'm sure it exists somewhere.
I Bucky, not I Tanya. I need it.
Oh my god.
And I bet if you looked for it, somewhere on Wattpad is I Bucky. With a description in the author's note, kind of like I Tanya, like in case you didn't make the connection.
And then I need the movie I Bucky, but Sebastian Stan still plays the role that he played in I Tanya.
One of my favorite fanfics ever is clearly in AU for a certain film. And I read it and was excited on how they had updated Coyote Ugly, and Sly read it and had no clue.
I don't even know what Coyote Ugly is.
And it was at all related to Coyote Ugly. I like that.
It's a great AU.
It's a fantastic AU,
I have no idea what the source material was.
Do you not know? Oh my god. Okay. Sorry. We will. I have opinions about Coyote Ugly, so we should move on.
Okay. Rant of the week for next week, perhaps. Okay. Let's talk about Daredevil. Let's do it. Let's just take 5 minutes on the clock and talk about Daredevil, because none of us are particular Daredevil fans. They are out there. It's just not this show. There's a great question that came in the chat, which is Matt even licensed to practice in California? That's not quick and cheap. You would be correct. That's also a question that I have. I guess he is.
I mean, apparently he's licensed. When did that happen? When could he afford to be?
Mhm.
All questions that I would like answered.
Well, I feel like that goes back to our legality thing too, because like if you're taking the GRE to get into certain institutions, and some people have different abilities than others, like
Mhm. Mhm.
I will say, Liz made a blanket statement about us not being fans of Daredevil. I stand by the fact that Colin Firth in the 2003 movie is very good. I also stand by all of the Echo appearances in Daredevil comics, very good. There's a lot of positive things surrounding Daredevil. I just, have feelings about the character and this particular portrayal.
So, and we've said it before in the show, so it shouldn't be a surprise to hear that we are all in agreement with the thought that a blind character should be played by a blind actor the same way we think that deaf actors should play deaf characters, and so on and so forth. Like that, if you think that's a radical statement to hear, then like I don't know where you've been, because we've said it since week one. Slide, you want to add to that at all?
Yeah. I guess we should get into it. Because in this episode we do get a reference to that with Dren making a comment about Matt asking if he's pretending to be blind. If so, that's problematic. And I went, ooh, that's a really out of touch line for them having a sighted actor playing a blind character. But when we were discussing it in the pre-show, you both mentioned that you thought it was like them making a dig at the situation. And so I thought it was really interesting that that line might read very differently depending on the cultural communities you are coming to the show from.
I do think that like I think everyone can relate to like a moment when you thought you were making a joke that you thought was like self-referential and funny, and then it just does not land in the room. And I feel like that's what this line was. Like the writer was like, haha, let's make a dig at what is a known problem and why discussion on the internet. And it was like,
Mm.
do
Mm.
we really joke about this? Does it sound tone
Or,
deaf?
you could just hire a blind actor to play a blind character. Hmm.
Alexis, where do you come in on this?
I think I feel similarly to you, Liz. I mean, this was something that I expressed before the show that I wasn't really comfortable talking about, but I think that they kind of wanted to play the middle ground on it. I think if they really wanted to make sure that we knew it was a commentary, it would have been in a fourth wall break, and it wasn't. But I guess it didn't read to me like it read to me like we're going to comment on it and kind of see where it goes. Mm-hmm. I don't know that it was that I would have personally considered it completely tone deaf, but I also don't know that I personally would have considered it like a stellar joke. I do think it's interesting. It was originally going to be my toast because I just thought it was a fascinating thing for them to point out, and it was kind of I like things that make me think. But I did find it interesting because there are aspects of this episode that felt very 2010 to me. And Christopher Gorham received a ton of praise in 2010. Just double checked the date for his portrayal of a blind character, and he's a sighted actor. So I think there's kind of it's interesting that we're really kind of seeing we comment a lot about Marvel kind of being a decade behind the curve. And I think maybe in this episode we saw that in places other than Luke Jacobson's suit fits.
I do think you like one of the points you just made that like it's interesting to me is like, would that have fit better as a fourth wall break? Or like as like, is there another way, like if they wanted to be referential to that, they could have done it other than the way they did it? It does feel like Marvel's trying to like keep pace with conversations that it's just not ready to confront, and that's one of their ways of doing it. And perhaps we leave it at that because it is a problem that Marvel has not fixed. It doesn't sound like they're going to fix with what they're doing with Daredevil in the near future. So let's talk about the Daredevil that we did get in this episode, since it was central to the plot and how we move it forward. Alexis, I really liked what you wrote, and I think it does relate to everything we just said, which is you're charming, but you don't need to be here. Is that the entire thought, or do you want to build on it?
I mean, I'm not the biggest Daredevil fan. I've never been the biggest fan of this iteration of Daredevil. I think it gets a lot of credit that it hasn't necessarily, like, it gets a lot of credit that it's not necessarily due. Like Sly, I think there are instances in the comics where Daredevil thrives, and I think there are a lot of instances in the comics where Daredevil is problematic. And I found it so interesting that there was a commentary about, in this episode, Matt being written for the female gaze, because while I think that is accurate, I also don't know that his place in this episode was reminiscent of the feminist show that She-Hulk started out being. And I think you can be written for the female gaze and be charming in a way that is really maybe perhaps unproblematically attractive to a largely female audience. But he does kind of play the role of mentor in this show. On the second rewatch, it particularly stood out to me that he really is the one seemingly that puts the thought in Jen's head that she needs to be her hero. She goes directly from that conversation to grab the suit. That is the type of mentorship that we've talked a lot on the show about not wanting to have in our Marvel shows. So
I think something that you said that sparked a thought for me is a lot of the credit, I think, that is being attributed to Daredevil as a character comes from the fact that Daredevil stories introduce a lot of very interesting characters that perhaps are much more interesting than Daredevil himself. But because it's his title series, it's his title show, it's his title run, he gets like all of the acclaim associated with that. Like when I think of the Netflix show, I'm like, ah, yes, the show that brought us Claire Temple. Amazing, brilliant. Do I think of anything Matt Murdock did in that show? Not really.
Well, I think that you could apply that exact thought to She-Hulk in some cases. Like, I think there's a lot of side characters on this show that are incredibly fascinating that I'll remember and think about longer than some of what Jen has done in this show. Like, I think, oh my God, and you have to forgive me because I'm not remembering her name right now, but who is her lovely friend and assistant? Nikki? Yes. Like, I think Nikki is someone that, like, has had some really stellar, like, standout lines and moments for me, and, like, has been kind of not just, like, the voice in her ear, but, like, a real plot pusher in a way that, like, I don't know if Jen could be any more stagnant than she is without Nikki lighting the fire under her constantly to just do anything. And I find that
There's
very
really
fascinating.
grounding force throughout the show.
And then you even have, like, what's her name? Madeline with a Y, but you don't know where it is, and two N's, like, from the trial. Madison. Like, she's hilarious. There's been so much of that in this show that I think it's taken away a little bit from, like the Jen that we could have had if they hadn't brought in all the cameos and the side characters and, like, added the extent of world building that they have. I don't know. And I got that a lot. I watched last week's and this week's episode back to back, right? Like, and I found in that, and I haven't watched your conversation about this from last week because I only watched the episode. Now we're going, I didn't want to spoil it for myself, but like the group therapy conversation, I was like, I'm so fascinated by everybody in this circle that like I don't really care that much about Jen's self-discovery mission here. Like I could watch more episodes of just these guys like sitting around talking about what they're dealing with, and I'd be very happy.
That reminisces a lot. I'm very excited for your thoughts on our thoughts.
I can't wait.
on
I'll
the
have to do a
previous
live tweet.
episode.
I'll have to do a live tweet. Yeah. So Matt Murdock, maybe we'll just leave it there. Is there anything else we want to add about Daredevil in this episode?
Shout out to 2005's Elektra.
You got it. Okay. So next week is the finale, and we always do some finale predictions. So let's end our She-Hulk conversation with some predictions for the finale. And if you're watching or if you're replaying today's episode, leave your thoughts in the comments, your predictions in the comments, and we can come back next week and see how spot on we were. Alexis, I love your prediction. Would you like to go first?
I never like going first, but I anticipate that we will see more 2010 era fashion in the finale.
And I hope you're right. I would very much enjoy that. Sly?
Okay. So my prediction is that when we get the Hulk King reveal, half of the fanboys will be very happy about it, and half of the fanboys will be very upset about it.
Wouldn't that be shocking? I would be so shocked. I would see the fanboys say something. Never. My big prediction is that, at the end of this episode, we see her like having hulked out, and like it looks like the police are gonna take her or something like to that effect. And maybe we might get some throwbacks to like the Abomination trial and having to prove that like he can control his anger, but like Jen's gonna have to face that right away because women are given less chances to prove that they're not crazy than men. Like they have to prove it more often. So I think like that might be where we're going. And then I also think that we're going to get the She-Hulk will return again, like end credit screen that Marvel thinks is more exciting than it actually is. Because like, of course, we're going to see She-Hulk again. You wouldn't have spent this much money on this series if we weren't going to see She-Hulk again. So those are my big predictions. And then Marissa did not leave any predictions for us, but I'm sure she has some. So you can check the show account where I'm sure she will share them over the next week.
Do we think A, Jen will be put on trial, and B, who is going to represent her? Will it be Mallory again? Will it be Matt?
Well, Matt's supposed to be on a flight back to New York. So I would hope Mallory. Maybe that other guy from The Office that gave her the really nice welcome basket. Yeah. Who I wish we had way more of him this series. I don't know why he's dropped off so many times. Alexis?
I think if it happened, it would be Pug. But I think in the fanfic where it happens, it's Matt.
We shall see how fast AO3 works. Before we go, let's talk about Werewolf quickly. Alexis, did you watch it? Because I have not watched it. No, so Sly, it is all you. What did you think about Werewolf?
Werewolf by Night. I had so many thoughts and feelings and emotions. And it had its claws in me. I was hooked. I was all in. I was so invested to see how this, special would play out. And then about like 35-ish minutes in, I don't remember exactly where, we start to get some intense flashing lights. And I'm like, all right, I'm already 35 minutes in. We'll see how long it lasts. The intense flashing lights kept going for a full 5 minutes. And then I was like, all right, that was a lot. Let's see how it goes from here. It continued with flickering lights on screen for a whole 5 more minutes. So it was 10 minutes straight at the back half of the special of just flashing lights happening on screen. And I was just so disappointed. Like I understand that this is like reminiscent of the style it was shot in, but also it wasn't a necessity. And I could see them feeling the need to use the flashing lights to cover up a part of the transition moment because that's expensive. I get it. Okay, whatever. If it was just that, like, transition scene and not the rest of the entire sequence, I would have been like, ooh, okay, flashing lights, warning, but still watch the special because it's doing really interesting things.
Mm-hmm.
But because it was 10 minutes straight, I cannot, in good faith, recommend this to anybody who has any sort of sensitivity. If you have light induced migraines, any of that, like Liz and I, just don't watch it because you're going to miss, you know, like what, 1/5 of
Yeah.
the entire story because it's just not accessible.
And not just 1/5 of the story, but like extremely pivotal 1/5 of the story.
Exactly.
Same with like the She-Hulk episode this week. I watched it by myself, which meant I had no one to dictate what was happening to me when I wasn't watching. So I missed the entire thing that happened that caused her to Hulk out. So by the time I was watching again, I was like, I have no idea why. Yeah, very bad.
But it, you know, I thought the story was an intriguing concept. The characters were, you know, the group of characters they brought together for this told me a lot about them, just very natively through how they were portrayed. The like play with the use of color was really interesting. Like I really wanted to love this. So, if you're not photosensitive, maybe check out Werewolf by Night. But yeah.
Shows for able-bodied people. That's what we put Werewolf by Night in, that category. Nice. And with that, we have had a week. So let's take the rest of this after party and just like do some self-care. How's that sound? We'll give everyone a few minutes of their night back and sign off. I am slowly coming back online at Producer Liz, so you might see me on the internet this week or not. Who's to say? But if you do see me, it's probably talking about The Wonder and Bones and All, which are the 2 movies I'm watching the press tours for, and My Policeman as well. And as we get closer to the Midnight's release, I will have more commentary. Alexis, where can people find you this week?
I'm at Just Alexis Blake all over the internet. I largely talk about grad school. And I have very old comic opinions on at Alexis Blake Reads Comics on TikTok if you need any of that information.
And the cats.
And the cats. Or on Tommy and Sassy Blake.
And Sly.
You can find me on TikTok Live every Thursday for Thirsty Thursday. You can find me on question mark every Friday night for Point in Progress Live. You can find me here, and you can also find my podcast MC University. We just released this week the episode with Marissa talking about Amazing Spider-Man 1. It was very fun. And we have some other faces you might see on screen coming to future episodes. Very exciting.
So excited. Marissa's episode was very fun. Very fresh. I cannot wait to listen to the Amazing Spider-Man episodes back to back. But with that, we're going to say goodnight and see you next week. Marissa's also not going to be here next week. But perhaps she'll share some thoughts on the She-Hulk finale, and we'll see you for the She-Hulk finale reaction episode and more. Bye, everybody. Oh, I gotta get the banner up. I don't know where it is. Okay, bye, everybody.
It's not just me.